Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. ඔයගොල්ලන්ව අදත් ඉතාමත්ම ආදරෙන් එකතු කරගන්නවා වීඩියෝ එකකට. අද අරගෙන ඉන්නේ මම ගොඩාක් විශේෂ වීඩියෝ එකක්. ඉතින් මගේ නිවේදන ක්ෂේත්‍රය ගොඩක් දෙනෙක් දන්නවා මම කලින් ලංකාවේ ඉන්නකොට නිවේදිකාවක් විදිහට වැඩ කළා. ඉතින් මගේ නිවේදන ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ මම මේ කරන විශේෂම ඉන්ටර්විව් එක කියලා කියන්න පුළුවන්. මම ආසම ගොඩාක් මට මේ වැදගත් වෙන වීඩියෝ එකක් ඔයගොල්ලන්ටත් වැදගත් වෙන වීඩියෝ එකක් තමයි මම අද අරගෙන එන්නේ. ඉතින් මම හරි ආසයි මේ ඉන්ටර්විව් එක කරන්න. මුලින්ම මට මේ වීඩියෝ එක මේ කෙනාව සම්බන්ධ කරලා දෙන්නේ ඉන්දික තමයි. ඉතින් ඉන්දිකට thank you කියන්න ඕනේ. අද ඉන්ටර්විව් එකකින් මම ඔයගලන්ට අරගෙන ඉන්නේ ලෝක වාර්තාවක්. SMS කෙනෙක් එක නෙමෙයි ලෝක වාර්තාවක් තියන්න යන පුද්ගලයෙක් තමයි අද ඉන්ටර්විව් කරන්න මම ලෑස්ති වෙලා ඉන්නේ. ඉතින් ඔහු නමින් Thor ඩෙන්මාර්ක් වල තමයි මොහු ඉන්නේ. ඉතින් මොහුගේ විශේෂත්වය තමයි මොහු තියන්න යන ලෝක වාර්තාව තමයි ගුවනින් නැතුව. ඒ කියන්නේ එකම ෆ්ලයිට් එකක්වත් යූස් කරන්නේ නැතුව ලෝකයේ හැම රටකටම එකම ජර්නි එකකින් එකම ජර්නි එකක් කියන්නේ ගෙදර යන්න නැතුව අපිට ගෙදර ගිහලාත් ආයෙ යන්න පුළුවන්. ගෙදර යන්නේ නැතුව එකම ජර්නි එකකින් එයාගේ මේ ලෝක වාර්තාව තියෙන එක තමයි ඔහුගේ පරමාර්ථය. ඉතින් තව ඉතුරුලා තියෙන එක සම්පූර්ණ කරන්න රටවල් 3යි. ඒකින් එකක් තමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකාව. ඉතින් මම හිතුවා අපිත් එක්ක ඔයගොල්ලොත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මේ විස්තර කියන්න. ඔහු සම්බන්ධව ඔහුගේ ජර්නි එක සම්බන්ධව කොහොමද මේක පටන් ගන්නේ? මේක දැන් මේ අවුරුදු 9ක් පුරාවට තමයි ඔහු කරගෙන ඉන්නේ. ඉතින් තව චුට්ට කාලයයි තියෙන්නේ. තව චුට්ටයි තියෙන්නේ ඔහුට මේ රටවල් 3 සම්පූර්ණ කරලා සම්පූර්ණ රටවල් 203ක්. එසේ මෙසේ පහසු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි, ලේසි දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ගොඩාක් අමාරු ජර්නි එකක් මේක. ඉතින් අපි ඒ ගැන කතා කරන්න තමයි අද වීඩියෝ එකෙන් ලෑස් වෙලා ඉන්නේ. ඉතින් ඕගොල්ලන්ටත් වැදගත් වෙයි කියලා හිතුවා. මොකද තව ටික කාලෙකින් ලංකාවටත් එනවා. ඕගොල්ලන්ටත් පුළුවන් ඔහු ගැන විස්තර දැනගන්න අද මගේ වීඩියෝ එකත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා හිටියොත්. එහෙනම් දිගටම එකතු වෙලා ඉන්න මොහුගේ මේ ජර්නි එකේ විස්තර දැනගන්න.
That there is Suva. Oh, either my yes, people. Thing with.
Are you crazy?
Yes, yeah, definitely crazy. A while since I did the last. Hi, I'm Thor from Once Upon a Saga. I am 3 countries from reaching every country in the world completely without flying. I have not been home for 9 years and I've so far been to 200 countries.
Hi Thor, welcome to my channel. I'm so glad to have you on my show. Thanks for being here.
Ayubowan, thank you very much for having me.
Ayubowan.
Yeah, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's nice and warm here in Fiji.
So you are currently in Fiji, right? So what is the current situation there?
Yeah, it's quite nice. They have elections now, so people are busy with that.
Okay.
I'm not voting for anyone. I'm just enjoying the warm weather and the kindness of the people here.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a good place to be.
That's good. That's great. So how did you come up with this idea that this world record?
Yeah, well, it all originated when my father, he sent me an email. He sent me many emails over the years with different links about different topics. And this one was about world travel. And before I reached the end of the article, I realized that no one had gone to every country in the world completely without flying.
True.
So it intrigued me. And yeah, so I started toying with the idea. And 10 months later, I left home.
Wow, that's great. So what was the first country of this project?
Well, I'm from Denmark, and Denmark is in the north of Europe.
Okay.
And there's only one country that we border by land, and that's Germany.
Okay.
So I got on a train, and I rode the train from Denmark into Germany, and then I went to the Netherlands and Belgium and Luxembourg and so on and so forth.
Really? That's incredible. So what did you do before you start this project?
My profession was within shipping and logistics.
Okay.
So I was 12 years within shipping and logistics before this, and before finding my way to shipping and logistics, I was a soldier. I was with the military for 3 years.
Wow.
And before that, I was studying. So,
I did not know that. Wow.
Oh, well, surprise.
I know. You know then how to survive yourself, right? You were in military.
Yeah, I was a United Nations peacekeeper in East Africa, in Eritrea and Ethiopia.
Okay.
So I learned something about being in that part of the world, but not many other things. Yeah.
So what was your first overseas trip?
That would have been Canada.
Oh.
So I was going across the North Atlantic in the winter time. So this is west from Europe across to North America. And I was on 7 different ships and boats, container ships and shrimp trawlers and anything that floats basically.
That is so cool. So how was that experience like?
It was very adventurous. But it was also scary and sometimes it was uncomfortable. This was in the North Atlantic in the winter time. It's a very rough sea. Wow. And this is also where the Titanic sank a long time ago. And so we were in a storm for 4 days with on board a container ship. And on some of the shrimp trawlers, we got stuck in the ice and had to reverse out and try again. And it was a special experience, and this was early on. But then finally I made the leg from Iceland to Canada, and then I was in North America.
Oh wow, that is amazing. So have you ever thought of quitting?
Oh yes, every day. Yeah, every day.
Wow, I don't know how you managed to do this for more than 9 years. It's a long time. You are very strong.
Well, the idea wasn't to do it for 9 years. The idea was to do it for 4 years or less. I thought maybe if I went a little fast, I could maybe even do it in 3.5 years. And that's not too crazy to spend 3.5 or 4 years.
That's true, right? To travel every country in the world. So how many countries are there? 200 something, right?
Yeah, more or less 200. So United Nations has 193, and the Olympics is typically 206. So around 200. Yeah.
So you may definitely have millions of unforgettable memories. Can you please share one story with us?
Oh, I have many unforgettable memories. A lot of them are tied.
Millions of them, right?
A lot of them are tied directly to people, the connections with people I've met, and I have really, really good memories with a lot of nice people around the world. I've been some places, I've seen some interesting things. One example, when I was in Florida, I was invited to see a rocket get sent into space. And this was after sunset. So,
is it NASA?
Yeah, NASA, yeah, exactly, at Cape Canaveral. So we were standing there and it was pitch black, it was night, and there were lights on the rocket far away from where we were standing. And there were many cars, many people watching that they were preparing the rocket, and soon the rocket would take off. And then on the radio, you hear, okay, it's now, and then people start counting, 10, really? 9, 8, and then suddenly you can see that this thing starts going up, and there's such a light bulb of fire underneath that everything turned into day. So all the grass was green and the water was blue, and it was night. 2 minutes before this, it was night, and then suddenly this goes up. It's like the sun is rising from the earth and goes up. And then after a little while, everything starts shaking. So it takes some time, and the sound hits you, and then it went up and away. And then suddenly I realized that this is the first and only time in my life I have seen something leave the planet. So every time you see a bird take off, it lands again. If you have a New Year's rocket or you fire a gun, or everything comes back on the planet, airplanes, everything. But this left the planet and went somewhere else. So that was quite special. Really?
That's incredible. So in which country you stayed the longest?
That's a really good question, because it used to be Lebanon. I was in Lebanon for 102 days. I was trying to get my visa for Syria and go inside Syria, and it was a very difficult visa to get, and it was also difficult to get permission, because Syria is a country which has been in armed conflict for many years now. So I thought 102 days would be my record. But then COVID broke out, and I had arrived to Hong Kong.
Okay.
So I was stuck in Hong Kong for 2 years. And Hong Kong is not a country. Hong Kong is a territory of China. So I don't know how to answer to say the longest stay was in China, but it was in reality in Hong Kong, which is a special administrative region. Yeah.
Okay. So can you please tell us, how do you manage money?
It's a bit of a puzzle. So when I left home, I had support from 2 companies. I have them here on my shoulder. Okay. There's one is Ross DK and the other is Geop, and that's my country and my flag, right? So these 2 companies, they were supporting the budget, which is $20 per day. The $20 is an average budget, so it covers transportation, accommodation, my meals, and my visas. And they were sponsoring and supporting for a couple of years.
That's great.
But then they had to withdraw the financial support.
Okay.
So they did that for a while. They were still supporting me in other ways, but not financially anymore. So I had to find some other way to keep the project going. So I spent everything I had on my bank account. I sold some of my belongings. I borrowed money. I borrowed money for a second time. And then I did a crowdfunding campaign. And my followers online were very generous and they were supporting. And I started writing some articles and selling the articles, and I did some speaking engagements and this kind of stuff. And then eventually I had so much support from my own community. I have some wonderful supporters across social media that want to see me succeed, and they help in any way they can. So that was keeping it afloat. And then when I got stuck in Hong Kong, I eventually got a job because immigration couldn't tolerate that I didn't have a job when I was such a long time in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. So with the job in Hong Kong, I was able to pay back the money that I lost, the loans that I took, and so on.
Okay.
And then actually these 2 companies, they came back in maybe 2017 or 18. They came back and said, we're strong again, we want to help and we want to support.
Wow, that's great.
So it's a mix of many different things.
I know, right? Oh my God, it's hard. So what country was the hardest to get the visa?
That's another good question. Because for the longest time, my answer was Equatorial Guinea. Back in 2015, around 2015, 2016, I was struggling to get inside Equatorial Guinea, which is a tiny country in Central Africa.
Wow.
And I didn't think it would cause any problems, but it's a military dictatorship, and they have very strict policies, and it was almost impossible to get the visa. And then when I had the visa in my hand, it was still 1 month before they let me cross the border. So that was a tough country. But since then, I experienced Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. And when I was visiting Saudi Arabia, this was before they had a tourist visa. For 40 years, they didn't have a tourist visa. But they have today. So if you want to go, maybe it's easy. But when I was trying to go, there was no tourist visa. So I spent maybe 7 months trying to get that. But I was traveling to different countries while I was trying to get it. So I wasn't wasting my time. And then now during the pandemic, I was trying to get to Palau. And Palau is an island nation in the North Pacific, and it was it took such a long time to get the paperwork and permissions and negotiating with government and negotiating with a container shipping company to get permission to come on board and COVID test and all of this.
Gosh.
So maybe it's Palau. I don't know. One of those 3.
Okay, so you have only last 3 countries to finish, right? Which one is the next?
That's right, yes. The next one is Tuvalu.
And then?
And I'm currently in Fiji, so I'll get on a boat, go to Tuvalu, then come back to Fiji.
Yeah.
And then I'll be on my way to the Indian Ocean, so I can visit Sri Lanka. and then Maldives.
Okay.
And then after Maldives...
Almost done. There you go.
And after Maldives, I imagine I'll be coming back to Sri Lanka for a second time.
That's great.
To connect home. Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Sri Lanka is very famous for hospitality. I guess that people will meet you and greet you.
I've met hundreds of Sri Lankans. I was working a year in Bangladesh before this project, and some of the designers on the project were from Sri Lanka, and we became close friends, and we had a good time together, and they were so kind and polite.
Yeah.
And I've been on so many container ships now, and a lot of the officers in the engine room and on the bridge, and they're always so kind, and they always give me Sri Lankan tea.
Yeah, Sri Lankan tea is the best. So how do you get in these container ships?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's like selling something to someone that doesn't want it. you know when you're standing on the street and you have these people that are giving a piece of paper and you just walk past and say, I don't want this people.
Like that.
That's what it's like.
That's
what it's like. So you're trying to get them to take the paper, and then if they take the paper, you need to make them interesting to read it. And if they're interested to read it, then you need to. It's such a nightmare. But it's become easier. So somehow it's become easier over the years because now I have established a lot of contacts. But initially, you try to get in touch with the shipping company, and then you try to convince them that it's a good idea for them to take a passenger on board. And that's almost mission impossible.
Wow.
There's even if you say I can pay, they don't care because the money that you're willing to pay is so small compared to the millions of dollars that it costs to operate the ship.
Yes.
So maybe if you say I'll pay $1 million, they will say yes immediately, but nobody's going to pay $1 million to be a passenger on a container ship. So it is really, really hard. There's no incentive for them to take a passenger, and there's every reason to say no. Because you could fall overboard or touch something, break something, you could bring a disease on board, you could create a delay, or you could get sick, or who knows. So it's just easy to say no, it's hard to say yes. But it's gotten easier. I've been on board 34, I think maybe 36 container ships now around the world.
Wow.
But
how many
trains?
When I say
sorry?
How many trains? How many buses?
Cool. I've been on maybe 300 trains and maybe 400 or 500 buses. Yeah.
My goodness, that's amazing! Oh my gosh,
But if you want to know with the container ships, so I said that it was hard in the beginning and then it got easier, but then with the pandemic it got hard again because they're so worried about getting the virus on board, and if they get the virus on the ship, then the ship has to quarantine, and if the ship is quarantining, then they're losing money. So again, they want to say no. Yeah.
So what was the original plan? When were you planning to end all this journey?
Well, I left home on the 10th of October 2013 at 10:10 a.m. So 10:10.
Wow.
And I was hoping it would take less than 4 years. So 2013, 14, 15, 16. Yeah. So maybe 16, maybe 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
It took a lot of time. But all worth it, right? Well, all worth it.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. It seems like it's worth it when I look back. You know, there are a lot of good memories.
I know, right? You saw a lot of things.
Yeah,
You've been
for
to
sure.
all the countries.
And I learned a lot about the world and culture and geography and history and so it's good looking back. And it's also good looking forward. Because when I look forward, I dream about what will come, and I will be together with my wife and my friends and maybe write a book about it and all this. But being in it is often just a nightmare.
I know, I can guess.
I want to finish it and have it done.
True, very true. I would love to know about your family a little bit. Would you like to share anything? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, my close family. I'm the oldest of 3 children. I have 2 younger sisters, and I was just Skyping with one of my sisters yesterday. We grew up in Denmark and in Canada and in the US, and then we were brought back to Denmark again. So we have like an international background. My mother is from Finland and my father is from Denmark, so already that's a little bit international. And a lot of our holidays were spent with family in Finland, so the seasonal festivities, and then come back to Denmark and do school in Denmark. And then I have a wife, but no children, not yet. And my wife is a woman who was together with me. We were a couple before I left home to visit all the countries without flying. But we were not married.
So you got married while you were on this journey, right?
That's right. So in 2016, she came to visit me for the 10th time. And she visited me in Kenya. And I had 2 rings, and I got her up on Mount Kenya, and I got on one knee, and I presented Yeah. And then, so she said yes.
Okay.
And then we knew we were going to get married someday.
Okay.
But then the pandemic broke out and delayed everything for us.
Yeah.
And then the only way that she could go, I was stuck in Hong Kong, and the only way she could come inside Hong Kong was if I was a resident.
Okay.
And if she was my wife. So first I had to find a way to become a resident, and I managed to do this. And then the next issue was that she was in Denmark and I was in Hong Kong. How do we get married? But actually, you can get married online through an agency in Utah.
Wow.
So we got married sort of like a call like
this
we're having
Zoom
right
call.
now. Yes.
That's interesting.
And after that, we got the official paperwork, and I was able to process this in Hong Kong. And then she could fly in, quarantine for 3 weeks, and then after that, we were together. But in Denmark, they don't accept a marriage where you're married online. So we decided we have to get married one more time, and we got married. We got married just 5 weeks ago in Vanuatu.
Congratulations! Nice.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
So when are you planning to go to Sri Lanka? I forgot to ask that.
Oh yeah, well, I'm hoping to get to Sri Lanka as fast as possible, as soon as possible. But I don't think it can be before maybe March, if everything just works out and the ships and all the paperwork.
You'll say March, April.
Maybe April. Yeah, March, April is realistic.
Okay.
And then the next country after that will be Maldives, and then hopefully come back to Sri Lanka for a second round.
Oh, that's awesome. So how are you going to go back to Denmark from Sri Lanka?
Well, there are two solutions to that. One is that I go straight to the airport and I fly home and I say it's done. And I spent enough time doing this. And the other is, so actually I don't need to come back to Sri Lanka. If I decide to fly home, I can fly home from Maldives. Okay. But if I want to go home without flying, then I have to come back to Sri Lanka because there's nowhere else I can go from Maldives. And then Sri Lanka is a powerful country in the region with a big port and a lot of international connections.
Yes.
So I hope I can find a ship that can take me through the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean Sea. And then as soon as I get to a European country, I can get in a bus or a car and go home.
Really? That's incredible. So do you have any message for world, for Sri Lanka?
Well, I'll share my project motto. So this project is called Once Upon a Saga, and the motto of the project is, a stranger is a friend you've never met before. And this is something I can prove 1,000 times over with stories from all around the world, with people who didn't know who I was, who showed me kindness and hospitality. And I know that Sri Lanka is famous for kindness and hospitality, so I'm sure it will also be true there.
Oh yeah, of course. You will be treated very well in there. So I wanted to wish you good luck, and also you can finish your journey as soon as possible without any issues, so you can go back to your family and set this world record as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
ඉතින් මේ විදිහට ඔන්න අද ඉන්ටර්විව් එක මට කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණා. ඉතින් මට ලොකු භාග්යක් මගේ channel එකෙන් මේ වගේ පුද්ගලයෙක්ගේ ඉන්ටර්විව් එකක් කරන්න ලැබුණ එක ගැන. මොහු ලෝකෙම දැන් මොහු ගැන බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ ගොඩාක් රටවල් වලින්. මොහු ගියපු ගොඩාක් ඉන්ටර්විව්ස් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මට මේ අවස්ථාව මගේ channel එකෙන් ඔයගලන්ට මේ වීඩියෝ එක ඉන්ටර්විව් එක කරලා අරන් එන්න පුළුවන් වුණ එක ගැන මට ගොඩාක් සතුටුයි. මම මේක භාග්යක් කර සලකනවා. ඉතින් ඔයගලන්ට පුළුවන් යාගේ channel එකට යන්න, Thorගේ channel එකට යන්න. Once Upon A Saga මම ඔක්කොම description එකේ links දාන්නම්. ගිහිල්ලා යාට support කරන්න, යාගේ journey එක බලන්න, ගිහිල්ලා දැනගන්න ලෝකයේ පුද්ගලයෝ මොනවද කරන්නේ. ලංකාවට ආවම කොහෙදී හරි ඔයගොල්ලෝ දැක්කොත් මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ ඉන්ටර්විව් එක අතරදී අපේ ලංකාව කියන්නේ ආගන්තුක සත්කාරවලට ප්‍රසිද්ධයි නේද? ලෝකෙම ප්‍රසිද්ධයි අපි ආගන්තුක සත්කාරවලට. අපි කවදාවත් කවුරු හරි ගෙදරට ආවොත් තේකක් නොබී තේකක් අපි පිළිගන්නන්නේ නැතුව යවන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දැක්කොත් කොහෙදී හරි කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් උදව්වක් උපකාරයක් තියෙනවා නම් ඔහුට කරන්න. ඉතින් යාට ගොඩක් යාළුවෝ ඉන්නවා කිව්වා අපිත් ඉතින් යාට උදව් කරන්න ඇහුවා. ඉතින් යා ගොඩක් කල් ලංකාවේ ඉන්න ප්ලෑන් එකක් නැති වුණත් ඔයගලන්ට කොහෙදී හරි හම්බුනොත් ඉතින් හෙලෝ කියන්න අමතක කරන්න එපා. කියන්න අමතක කරන්නත් එපා. ලයිෆ් විත් ඔවි YouTube channel එකෙන් තමයි ඒවව දැක්කේ කියලාත් කියන්න අමතක කරන්න එපා. ඉතින් ඔයගලන්ට හම්බුනොත් ඉතින් මටත් කියන්න ෆොටෝස් ගන්න මට එවන්න පුළුවන් නම් channel වල share කරන්න. එයාගේ Facebook account pages තියෙනවා. එයාගේ YouTube එකක් තියෙනවා. ගිහිලා follow කරන්න, එයාට support කරන්න කියලා ඉතාමත්ම ආදරෙන් ඔයගලන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලනවා. ඉතින් මේක ලොකු දෙයක්. ලෝකේ එකම එක්කෙනා මේ වගේ වැඩක් කරන. ඉතින් එයාට අපි සපෝට් කරමු. අපි ඔක්කොමලා සපෝට් කරමු. තව චුට්ට කාලයක් තියෙන අවුරුදු 9ක් කියන්නේ තමන්ගේ පවුලේ අයත් එක්ක ඉන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ. විශේෂ අවස්ථාවන් ගොඩාක් පහු වෙන්නේ නැති. ඉතින් එයා තනියෙන් මේ ජර්නි එක කරනවා කියන එක අපිට හිතන්නවත් පුළුවන් කාර්යයක්ද බෑ නේද? ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දෙයක් කරන කෙනෙකුට අපි හදවතින්ම අපි විශ් කරමු. අපි සපෝට් කරමු පුළුවන් උපකාරයෙන් අපි ඔක්කොමලා. ඉතින් ලංකාවේ අපි මට ඕනේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ අනිවාර්යෙන් ලංකාවට හමු. මොකද මට මේ වීඩියෝ එක කරන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබුණේ එකේ මට ඕනේ ලංකාවේ අය මේ වගේ කියලා පෙන්වන්න. ලංකාව මේ වගේ කියලා පෙන්වන්න. අද තියෙන තත්ත්වය හරිම දුක්ඛිතයි. නමුත් මට ඕනේ අපේ ලංකාව මිනිස්සු මෙහෙමයි. හරිම ආදරණීයයි. හරිම අපි ගොඩක් අයට සලකනවා කියන එක දැන් අපි අහලා තිබුණාට මේ වගේ එන අයට අපිට අපේ සංචාරකයින්ට මේ වගේ ලෝක ප්‍රසිද්ධ පුද්ගලයින්ට පෙන්වන්න මම හරි ආසයි. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා තමයි මට හිතුනේ මේ වගේ වීඩියෝ එකක් ඔයගලන්ට අරගෙන එන්න ඕනේ කියලා. ඉතින් අද වීඩියෝ එක ටිකක් නෙවෙයි සම්පූර්ණ වෙනස් නේද? මම මගේ channel එකේ කරපු පළවෙනි ඉන්ටර්විව් එක මේ වගේ පුද්ගලයෙක් එක කරන්න ලැබුණ එක ගැන මට ගොඩක් සතුටුයි. මම glad. ඉතින් ඒක මට ඉන්දික තමයි සපෝට් කළේ එයාව contact කරගන්න. ඉතින් ඉන්දික මේ ජර්නි එක මුලින් ඉඳන්ම එයාගේ හරිම curious ගොඩාක් එයාව follow කළා. එයා මොකද කරන්නේ දැන් කොහෙද ඉන්නේ මොකක්ද එයාගේ තත්ත්වය හැම දෙයක්ම ෆලෝ කරලා ඉතින් එයාත් එක්ක chat කරලා කොහොම හරි මට මේ අවස්ථාව ලබා දුන්න මගේ channel එකෙන් අරගෙන එන්න. ඉතින් මේ විදිහට අද ඔයගලන්ට අරගෙන ආවා. කලින් කිව්වා වගේ එයාගේ ඔක්කොම description එකේ මම දාන්නම් ගිහලා ෆලෝ කරන්න. එහෙනම් අදට අපි මේ වීඩියෝ එක මෙතනින් නවත්තනවා. ඔයගලන්ට thank you so much අදත් මගේ වීඩියෝ එකත් එක්ක එකතුලා හිටියට.